A preacher's wife was expecting a baby, so he asked the congregation for a raise. After much discussion, they agreed. Every time his family grew, his paycheck would too. After 6 children, the church decided to hold another meeting to talk about how expensive this rule had become. There was a lot of arguing until the preacher stood up and said, "Children are a gift from God." The room went silent. Then an elderly lady in the back pew stood up and said, "Rain is also a gift from God, but when we get too much of it, we wear rubbers." The congregation proclaimed in unison, "Amen." A Canadian Army CO was about to start the morning briefing to all the staff. While waiting for the coffee machine to finish its brewing, the CO decided to pose a question to all assembled. He explained that his wife had been a bit frisky the night before, therefore he failed to get his usual amount of sound sleep. He posed the question, how much of the act of sex is work, and how much is pure pleasure? A captain chimed in with a 75 to 25% in favor of work. A lieutenant said it was probably about 50 to 50%. A warrant officer responded with a 25 to 75% in favor of pleasure, depending upon his state of inebriation at the time. There being no consensus, the CO turned to the private who was in charge of making the coffee. What was his opinion? Without any hesitation, the young private responded, "Sir, it has to be 100% pleasure, sir." The CO was a little surprised and, as you might guess, said, "And why is that, soldier?" "Well, sir, if there was any work involved, the officers would have me doing it for them, sir." The room fell silent. God bless privates. There once was a man who lived in a little hut down by the lake. Every morning he would wake up at sunrise and go down onto the docks to feed the baby ducklings. Each day, he would bring exactly 6 slices of bread down, 1 for each baby duckling. But as summer was starting to come to an end, the man thought the ducklings could use more food. So he decided one day to bring 12 slices of bread, 2 for every duckling. After feeding the ducklings all their extra bread, he felt satisfied to start his day, looking forward to bringing more bread for them tomorrow. However, when the man returned the next morning, he discovered that all the ducklings had died due to bread actually being terrible for ducks, and you should never feed it to them. A bodybuilder was admiring his body in the mirror when he noticed he was suntanned everywhere except his pecker. So he decided to head to the beach, got completely naked, and buried himself in the sand with just his pecker sticking out. 2 elderly ladies strolled by and saw it. One poked at it with her cane and said, "There isn't any justice in this world." Her friend asked, "What do you mean?" She replied, "When I was 20, I was curious about it. When I was 30, I enjoyed it. When I was 40, I demanded it. When I was 50, I paid for it. When I was 60, I prayed for it. When I was 70, I forgot about it. And now that I'm 80, the dang things are growing wild, and I'm too old to squat." My blonde sister hates blonde jokes. I, the redhead, told her I have a redhead joke for her. She was eager to hear it. A redhead goes for a drive through the country, just enjoying the peaceful ride with her windows open. She has to stop as a shepherd is moving his flock across the road. The redhead gets out of her car to stretch and has an idea. "Hey, mister, if I can guess how many sheep you have, may I keep one?" The shepherd has hundreds of sheep and feels confident enough to agree. The redhead looks over the flock and says, 361. The shepherd is stunned that she guessed correctly, but being a man of his word allows her to pick out her favorite. The redhead is about to put her new pet in her car when the shepherd calls out to her, "Hey, lady, if I can guess your real hair color, may I have my dog back?" My sister was not amused. A man and a woman were having a quiet, romantic dinner in a fine restaurant. They were gazing lovingly at each other and holding hands. While taking another order a few steps away, the waitress suddenly noticed the man slowly sliding down his chair and under the table, but the woman continued staring straight ahead. The waitress watched as the man slid completely out of sight under the table. Still, the woman didn't react. Thinking his behavior was a bit risque and might offend other diners, the waitress walked over to the table and gently said, "Pardon me, ma'am, but I think your husband just slid under the table." The woman calmly looked up and replied, "No, he didn't. My husband just walked in the door." A tractor salesman shows up at Joe's farm. The salesman approaches the farmer and says, "Good day to you, sir. I'd like to tell you about our top-of-the-line tractor. You will not find a better tractor than this anywhere, and I can see that you are a man of discerning tastes. Tell you what." Old Joe interrupts the sales pitch and, without a word, leads the man to the barn. When they get there, he says, "You a good salesman? Let me tell you a story. The other day I came out to milk old Bessie. I just got sat down behind her, and she kicks me with her back left leg. So I tied it to the stall. Then she kicks me with her back right leg. So I tied that to the stall too. Then she swats me right in the face with her tail. So I tied a piece of twine to her tail and looped the other end over the rafters." The salesman gives a puzzled nod, and the farmer continues. "Then my wife walked into the barn and she saw me standing behind old Bessie. Now, mister, if you can convince my wife I was only trying to milk that cow, I'll buy one of your damn tractors." After sitting down at their favorite diner, Doris studied the menu for 10 minutes. Walter sighed loudly. "You order the same thing every time. Just say it." Doris frowned. "What if I want something different today?" Walter smirked. "Then we'll be here until breakfast tomorrow." Finally, Doris handed the menu to the waitress. "I'll have the usual." Walter chuckled. "See? That only took an hour." Doris sipped her water and said sweetly, "And I'll take my time eating it just to annoy you." The visiting church school supervisor asks Johnny during Bible class, "Who broke down the walls of Jericho?" Johnny responds, "I don't know, but it definitely wasn't me." Shocked by this lack of basic Bible knowledge, the supervisor rushes to the principal and shares the whole incident. The principal, calm as ever, replies, "I know Johnny and his whole family well. If Johnny says he didn't do it, then I trust him. That's the truth, as far as I'm concerned." Still baffled, the supervisor goes to the regional head of education and recounts the whole story. After listening, the regional head calmly says, "I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of this. Just get 3 quotes and get the darn wall fixed." A man is sitting on the bank of a river with a turtle, and an officer from the fisheries board approached him. The officer says to the man, "Do you know it's illegal to poach turtles out of this river? They're an endangered species?" The man says to the officer, "No, this is my pet turtle. I bring him down here every day and let him go for a swim. He swims across the river and back." "Oh, no," the officer replies. So the man places the turtle in the water and says, "Watch this." The turtle swims out, and the 2 men are standing there waiting. 10 minutes goes past, and the officer says, "Well, where's the turtle?" The man replies, "What turtle?" An elderly Irish lady visits her physician to ask his advice on reviving her husband's libido. "What about trying Viagra?" asked the doctor. "Not a chance," she replied. "He won't even take an aspirin." "Not a problem," said the doctor. "Give him an Irish Viagra." "What on earth is Irish Viagra?" she asked. "It's Viagra dissolved in his morning cup of coffee. He won't even taste it." "Let me know how it goes," he said. She called the doctor the very next afternoon. "How did it go?" he asked. "Oh, Faith, bejasus and begorra, doctor, it was terrible. Just horrid, I tell you. I'm beside myself." "Oh, no. What in the world happened?" "Well, I did the deed, doctor, just as you advised. I put the Viagra in his morning coffee, and he drank it. Well, you know, it took effect almost immediately, and he jumped straight up out of his chair with a smile on his face, a twinkle in his eye, and his pants a-bulging. Then, with one fierce swoop of his arm, he sent the cups, saucers, and everything else that was on the table flying across the room, ripped my clothes to tatters, and passionately took me then and there right on top of the table. 'Twas a nightmare, I tell you, an absolute nightmare. Why so terrible? Asked the doctor. Wasn't the love good? Freaking Jesus, it was the best love I've had in my last 25 years, but sure as I'm sitting here, doctor, I'll never be able to show my face in Starbucks again. Trump dies from the virus. He goes to hell, where the devil is waiting for him. I don't know what to do, says the devil. You're on my list, but I have no room for you. But you definitely have to stay here, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've got 3 people here who weren't quite as bad as you. I'll let one of them go, but you have to take their place. I'll even let you decide who leaves. Trump thought that sounded pretty good, so he agreed. The devil opened the first room. In it was Richard Nixon and a large pool of water. He kept diving in, swimming to the bottom, and then resurfacing, over and over and over. Such was his fate in hell. No, said Trump. I don't think so. I'm not a good swimmer, and I don't think I could do that all day long. The devil led him to the next room. In it was Tony Blair with a sledgehammer and a room full of rocks. All he did was swing that hammer time after time after time. No, I've got this problem with my shoulder. I would be in constant agony if all I could do was break rocks all day, commented Trump. The devil opened a third door. In it, Trump saw Bill Clinton lying naked on the floor, with his arms staked over his head and his legs staked in a spread eagle pose. Bent over him was Monica Lewinsky, doing what she does best. Trump looked at this in disbelief for a while and finally said, Yeah, I can handle this. The devil smiled and said, Monica, you're free to go. The census taker stood at the door, clipboard ready. Sir, are you married or happy? He asked George. George froze. His brain stalled like an old lawnmower. Well, I'm married and I'm... From upstairs, Martha's voice thundered, Careful how you answer that! George panicked, stepped back, and tumbled down the stairs in slow motion. Flat on the floor, he groaned, Married. The census taker raised an eyebrow. Should I write married but not happy? Martha appeared at the top of the stairs, arms crossed like a drill sergeant. You better write married and happy or I'll make sure he falls again. George sighed. Put down married, happy, and slightly bruised. The census taker jotted a note. Status, married beyond repair. The Geek, the Girl, and the Bicycle. 2 engineering majors, geeks, meet. One tells the other what happened to him. Yesterday I had the strangest of things happen. I was walking home from class when a beautiful young woman on a bicycle stopped in front of me. His friend begged him to continue. So she looked me up and down, ripped her clothes off, stood naked before me and said, Whatever you want, just take it. The friend looked puzzled. Wow, what did you do? I took the bike and thanked the lady, said the first geek. The second geek nodded in agreement. Makes sense. The clothes probably weren't your size and she had ripped them apart. A little boy gets on the public bus and sits right behind the bus driver. The boy keeps repeatedly saying, If my mom was a cow and my dad was a bull, I'd be a little calf. If my mom was a hen and my dad was a chicken, I'd be a little chick. If my mom was a deer and my dad was a buck, I'd be a little deer. If my mom was a duck and my dad was a goose, I'd be a little duckling. The annoyed bus driver stops the bus and turns to the boy saying, What if your mom was a drunk and your dad was a bum? The boy responds, Then I'd be a bus driver. 3 women are sick of their boss always leaving work early on a Tuesday. One Tuesday, they all agree to wait 20 minutes after the boss has left, then sneak out themselves. Their boss would never know. The brunette left and decided to go shopping. The redhead decided to hit the gym before meeting some friends for drinks. The blonde decided to go home and surprise her husband, but when she arrived home, she heard noises in the bedroom. She slowly walked up, peeked through the door, and saw her husband in bed with her boss. Mortified, she closed the door and crept out of the house. The next day back at work, the girls met up and discussed if they should all skip out early again next week. "No way," said the blonde. "Yesterday I almost got caught." The blind salesman, a woman in the shower. A woman was taking a shower when she heard a knock on the door. She called out, "Who is it? I can't come to the door right now. I just stepped out of the shower." The man at the door answered, "Don't worry, lady, I'm a blind salesman." So the woman says, "Okay, you can come in." He gets inside and asks, "Where would you like the blinds?" Son: "Daddy, I fell in love and want to date this awesome girl." Son: "Daddy, I fell in love and want to date this awesome girl." Father: "That's great, son. Who is she?" Son: "It's Sandra, the neighbor's daughter." Father: "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that. I have to tell you something, son, but you must promise not to tell your mother. Sandra is actually your sister." The boy is naturally bummed out, but a couple of months later. Son: "Daddy, I fell in love again and she is even hotter." Father: "That's great, son. Who is she?" Son: "It's Angela, the other neighbor's daughter." Father: "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Angela is also your sister." This went on a few more times, and finally the son was so mad he went straight to his mother crying. Son: "Mom, I am so mad at Dad. I fell in love with 6 girls and I can't date any of them because Dad is their father." The mother hugs him affectionately and says, "You can date whoever you want. He isn't your father." A 18-year-old male walks into a drugstore. He says, "I've been invited to Christmas dinner at my new girlfriend's house. Afterwards, I hope there is a chance I get lucky. You know what I mean." Clerk: "How about condoms then? They could come in handy. Here's a pack." The young man, after paying, walks to the door, stops, smiles, and comes back. "You know what? The mom is also smoking hot. I think I'll take another pack, just in case I get extra lucky." Christmas Eve comes around, and the boy sits at the dinner table and doesn't say a word. After a while, his girlfriend says, "If I had known you were so quiet, I wouldn't have invited you." The young man replies, "If you had told me your dad works at a drugstore, I wouldn't have come." On their 52nd anniversary, George took Martha to a fancy restaurant. The waiter poured wine and asked George, "What's your secret to such a long marriage?" George cleared his throat. "Simple. I never go to bed angry." Martha raised an eyebrow. "That's a lie." The waiter looked confused. "Oh?" Martha smirked. "The truth is, George has been awake since 1973. The whole restaurant burst into laughter. George sighed into his glass. "I was hoping for steak, not public humiliation." Later, as they left, George muttered, "Next year we're eating at McDonald's." Martha patted his arm. "Fine, as long as you stay awake to drive." A woman and her male neighbor each buy greenhouses. They both decide to grow tomatoes, and a few months later they meet up and talk about how they're getting on. The man says his are big and red, but the woman says hers are still green and asks the man his secret. "Every day I go in the greenhouse naked. The tomatoes are so embarrassed they blush." The woman thinks this is a good idea and decides to give it a go. They meet again the following month, and the man asks about her tomatoes. "Still green," she replies, "but you should see my cucumbers." A burglar broke into a house one night. He shined his flashlight around looking for valuables when a voice in the dark said, "Jesus knows you're here." He nearly jumped out of his skin, clicked his flashlight off, and froze. When he heard nothing more, he shook his head and continued. Just as he pulled the stereo out so he could disconnect the wires, clear as a bell he heard, Jesus is watching you. Startled, he shone his light around frantically, looking for the source of the voice. Finally, in the corner of the room, his flashlight beam came to rest on a parrot. "Did you say that?" he hissed at the parrot. "Yes," the parrot confessed, then squawked, "I'm just trying to warn you that Jesus is watching you." The burglar relaxed. "Warn me, huh? Who in the world are you?" "Moses," replied the parrot. "Moses?" The burglar laughed. "What kind of people would name a bird Moses?" "The same kind of people who would name a pit bull Jesus." "When does the liquor store open?" A man calls the owner of a liquor store one evening. "What time do you open the store tomorrow morning?" The owner answers, "We open at 9, sir. Goodbye." A few hours later, the same man calls again and asks the same question. Only this time he is a bit tipsy. "I already told you, sir. We open at 9. Now stop calling me." Then he calls again about 4 o'clock in the morning. This time he is totally wasted. Again he asked the same question. The owner, pretty angry by now, screams at him, "You know when we open, and by the sound of your voice, we won't be letting you into the store any time soon." "Who said I wanted in?" says the man. "I want to get out." A policeman is driving past a roadside apple stand when he notices the sign, "Apple seeds guaranteed to make you smarter, $20 per seed." He pulls over and informs the vendor that it is fraud and false advertising to make absurd claims like this. "No, no, no," the vendor tells the cop. "My apples are a special variety, a scientific miracle. Buy just one seed, eat it, and you will notice an increase in intelligence. If not, I promise to refund your $20. "All right," says the cop. "But if this doesn't work, I'm shutting your operation down." He hands over a $20 bill, takes the seed, chews it up, and waits for it to kick in. After a few moments, he says, "You know, even if you're not lying, I could have bought a whole bag of your apples and had enough seeds to last me months." "Ah, yes," says the vendor. "It's working already."